Hi, I'm Michael Shmitz. I'm the Director of Liturgy and Worship for the Diocese of Stockton, and I'm going to teach you a little bit about bishops today.
Perfect.
Bishop-elect is a man who has been appointed as a bishop, but he has not yet been ordained. The difference between an archbishop and a bishop is that an archbishop is the bishop of an archdiocese, and the bishop is the bishop of a diocese. The difference between an archdiocese and a diocese is usually that an archdiocese is larger, or it's seated in an important city or a place of historic importance. An archdiocese will usually have several other dioceses underneath it called suffragan sees, and they together make up what's called an ecclesiastical province. In different times in church history, an archbishop had a great deal of authority over those other dioceses, but in today's church, except for just a few small areas, the difference is more ceremonial than anything. In the early church, there was a bishop of every town, every city, every place had its one bishop. But as the church grew, dioceses tended to grow with it, especially as they covered huge rural areas where you couldn't really have a bishop everywhere. And as that happened, it became harder and harder for bishops to do all the things that were proper to them, and still be able to do their job completely. And so the practice came of having what are called auxiliary or helper bishops, who assist the bishop in his episcopal ministry specifically. And so out here in the Western U.S., dioceses are often very big. And the idea, again, is that the bishop, if you have 100 parishes versus, say, our 36, 35 that we have here, it's a lot harder to do all the confirmations, for example, especially if you have a much larger Catholic population, you have a lot more parishes, it's just a lot harder to do. And so those dioceses need other bishops to help in that. It's a complicated and secretive process, and it's changed a lot over history, actually. But in the modern day, in the end, it's that they're chosen by the Pope, but that goes through a long process of consultation before getting to that point. And so it'll start often in the local diocese and the local province, talking about priests who might be good candidates to become bishop. And eventually those names will filter their way down to the Apostolic Nuncio in Washington, who's the Pope's ambassador to the U.S., and then to the Congregation of Bishops in the Roman Curia, and eventually to the Pope, who makes the final choice. A relatively recent thing in the church is that when a bishop turns 75, he has to submit his resignation to the Pope. And the Pope can decide whether to accept it or not. He can continue serving as a bishop for much longer. But at 75, they all have to submit their resignation. And so it's much more common to have retired bishops around today. But they might also retire for reasons of health, reasons of sanity. It's a lot to take on being a bishop. And so once somebody has retired from being the bishop of a diocese, they're still a bishop, but they're not the bishop of the diocese anymore. And so they have the title of Bishop Emeritus.